Welcome to VoiceOver 101.
Welcome back to another VO101 episode, and I'm here with the stars of Pop TV's Impress Me. These guys are master impersonators, and I wanted to talk a little bit because so many people ask me about voice matching because I do so much of it. So I thought I'd get some experts on the subject here to explain it a little better if I haven't, or to give you a little more information about it. So the Reader's Digest version of where you came from as far as voiceover to where you are now, and I guess we'll let we'll send to Age Before Beauty, Jim, if you want to go first.
Okay. Yeah, definitely Before Beauty. Yeah. So I'm grew up in Hollywood. I'm the son of Marion Ross of Happy Days. I first got started in New York doing voice matching. You know, doing things for promos, and always loved to do impressions and stuff like that. And then I got into animation in New York also, at a time when there wasn't much animation going on. And then moved back to LA, and I've done absolutely everything in terms of voice work, and but most of it is centered around doing celebrity voices, different ones, sometimes many times, like for the Tonight Show, where I did Morgan Freeman for probably 5 or 6 years intermittently, and now I mainly do the Blue Genie, late departed Blue Genie from Aladdin for the Disney people, and then this show Impress Me, which is very autobiographical, and it has to do with the frustration of always having to be someone else rather than what you feel like you could be.
Well, I was born here in Los Angeles and grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I had very creative parents. My dad was from a theater background. My mom was a painter. And I traveled a lot based on whatever interest persuaded my mother usually. So it was Georgia O'Keeffe. We went to New Mexico. She wanted to be poor in paradise, so I had to spend some time in Hawaii. And then I had a fascination with animation. I loved Disney growing up, as many people did. And I started studying animation, and then was a little shy as far as going on camera and that sort of thing, because my dad was a big personality and always pushed for that, but I just felt like, oh, no, that's not for me. And I discovered voiceover and was really intrigued by it and excited because you could hide behind a microphone and pretend to be somebody else. And so that was the initial spark. And from there, YouTube came 2006, 2005. Started playing around with that, sharing some of my skills, got some attention. From there, Saturday Night Live called me. I auditioned for them. Didn't get on the show, but it opened a lot of doors and opportunities and made me realize that I should focus on this because I am capable, and it gave me great confidence because I always said, no, I'll never get a chance at that. And from then on, I moved on to England and studied there for a little bit, then came to Los Angeles, studied at the Groundlings for several years, improv comedy. I've done some stand-up, and recently I've been doing some voiceover for Disney for Wander Over Yonder. I'm a regular on the Howard Stern Show, and I do pranks and things like that all the time, and I know Jim through the small circle of voiceover and impressionists around here, and he was kind enough to invite me onto the Impress Me show, and from then on we've been doing great collaborations, so just excited to be part of this tiny little circle of weirdos.
Very cool. Could you guys very quickly explain the difference between, because I know all of us have done it, the difference between doing impressions and doing voice matching for ADR or loop groups?
That's interesting. I don't have a quick answer to that. It seems very similar. I guess with there's the field of impressions, to my mind, lends itself more to creativity, and the ADR is more about duplication, technical duplication.
I would agree. As far as impressions are, can be exaggerations of a personality, and you can have more fun with it. You can invent circumstances and things that the audience would enjoy, versus ADR is something you have to match in the moment. And many times, from what I'm sure you've all experienced, is when you're matching a particular celebrity, you know what they sound like, the audience knows what they sound like, and then you go for their scene that you're trying to match, and they sound nothing like you've
Yeah.
heard them before, and it's because they're either playing a different character or different volume of mic or different circumstance. So it's very different, and it's more of a technical skill. I know a lot of guys who do voiceover who do great ADR work, but they're not impressionists. They
Yeah.
just have the ability to find that point of view, the tone, the volume, and match a voice and the performance rather than getting the exact nuance and exaggerated hook that an
Yeah.
impression can do.
Jim, there's a scene in episode 2 of Impress Me where you go to Matt from Breaking Bad and do Russell Crowe, and you talk about this exact thing. It's about acting. It's about, it's almost more about the acting part than the actually sounding like the other person is, because they're acting in the film and you're trying to match that. Whereas an impression works much more for comedy. You can improvise with it more, play around with it more.
But also lends to the idea like an impression versus an impersonation. Like an
Right.
impersonation can be something that is closer to a voice match, where it's like you can't tell the difference, whereas an impression is just kind of like a caricature of something.
I was thinking it's sort of like the difference between a stage magician who says, "And now I will perform this trick," and brings someone on stage and does something. The difference between that and a guy who's just on the street and he's a pickpocket, and he doesn't want people to know that he's fooling people, because that's how he makes his living.
A couple of comments are saying that you look like Patrick Stewart and Robin Williams, Jim. I kind of see the Robin Williams a little bit, but
Yeah, from the side I look more like Patrick Stewart. I don't know, but I had the guy. I sat on an airplane this week, and the guy, there was someone from Germany, and he said, "You look a lot like this doctor from the X-Men, yeah?" Not a lot.
So let's talk
Not
about
the
the show.
magnetic one.
Where'd the concept for the show come from?
Well, it came from a phone call I got from Ben Shelton. That's really started it, and he was directing a wonderful series that he doesn't do anymore, but it's still online, called The Flip Side. And he said, "Would you like to be in a Flip Side?" And so I looked at his films, and I could tell they were really high quality. It wasn't just a silly request, and I wanted to be part of it. So I said, "Sure." Then we shot the script that he wrote, and it was funny, and we did it with Max No Sleeves. I don't know if you know him from YouTube. I forget what his real name, but he's Max No Sleeves because he never wears sleeves. And I just noticed how A to B and how businesslike and yet how professional and fun Ben Shelton is. And in that one day, we got so much done. Everybody had a great time. I saw the way he ran his crew. I saw the way he dealt with me, and then I saw the finished product, and I was like, wow, this guy is really, really good, because that's all hard stuff. Then I was looking back on his other films on the flip side, and I saw, oh, you worked with my friend Ross. And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, did you know Ross was an impressionist? And he said, well, I think he said, I don't remember, I'm filling this in as folklore now. I think he said, yeah, I kind of knew that, but Ross and I had met earlier because we'd met on a couple other things, and we'd actually gotten together and had lunch and said, we should figure out a way to do some kind of a show or some kind of a short collaboration, and we were like all jazzed about it, but we had no clue how to do it. So I said to Ben, I said, we should get together and talk about it. And Ben said, yeah, let's go. And the three of us had breakfast together. And originally it was supposed to be maybe a kind of a sketch show, or maybe a kind of like a sketch show with goofy scenes and characters. But as Ben listened to us and our lives, because we told him about the life of a recording artist, of a voice matcher, of an animation guy, and all the silly jobs we do, he said, well, that's the story. That's the thing we should do. So he went off and wrote the pilot, lickety split, and got Soul Pancake to bankroll it. And I think it was probably well over $12. And and then we shot it, and then it just kept growing. And that's why I said we got to have Piotr in it, because I learned about Piotr and we'd met before, and I just knew that there was a resource there, and he's added so much to the show, and I just love his character. I know Ben does too. It's just It's just a terrific the way it's all evolved.
And for you guys watching in the comments, some of these guys don't know anything about the show, and you should definitely watch it. It's on Pop TV.
Oh,
It's channel 102 where I am, but it's on demand if you have Comcast.
If you have Comcast, oh nice, that's a new development. I don't know anything about that, but that sounds good because I think people are going to want to binge watch at least 3 or 4 at a time, since they're only 22 minutes or whatever. Yeah, if you go to www.poptv.com, you can see what your local channel is. It's in the LA area on Time Warner. It's 175.
The first time I saw Ross was in Walking Dead playing Aaron, which I was familiar with because I read the comic. They asked him on Talking Dead to do Matthew McConaughey, and I was like, wow, this guy is really, really good. So as soon as I saw him with you, and I was like, oh, this is a must-see for me. And talk about some of the guest stars you guys have had.
Oh yeah, we just had Kevin Pollak last night, and we just had Brandon Routh as well, Erica Christensen, and
Beth Riesgraf is another person.
Josh Groban as well.
Right.
And we also have some upcoming guest stars. I don't know if we're allowed to mention, but
yeah, go ahead.
We can mention. We've got Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh wow!
And that was pretty phenomenal. We actually on the day of the shoot, we had both Weird Al and Kevin Pollak on the same day, so it was like a huge, deal for everybody because most of the crew are, fans of the guys who are on there. So it was like, as soon as we yell cut, everybody's like swarms around, like, hey, Weird Al, the thing you do, it's really fun. But no, we just so lucky to get so many awesome people on the show, and that's, I think, the saddest thing about the show is there's so many people that should be on. Like, we could make shows of the shows of people that are on here because there's so many talented people.
And everybody's playing themselves too, and you're almost playing yourself.
Yeah.
I have to ask though, how much truth is there in this show? Because some of it rings very true to me personally. So.
A lot of truth. Well, like Jim said, the stories come from Jim and Ross's personal experiences, and Ben is always with a little notebook, and he's writing, things that he overhears us having during our lunch break or whatever, because it's a whole world that people don't really know about, and you can't. Many of these stories you can't just make up. You can heighten the situation or the experience to make it better for TV, but a lot of it is from real sources.
John, I'd like to ask you what have you seen that's rung true for you?
Honestly, the second episode when you have the guys that are all like, "Oh man, he does such great impressions," and man, those impressions, those guys got it easy, and the fact that sometimes that they consider us not real actors. I've actually had other people say, "Oh, you're not a real actor. You're just one of those voice guys." And I told Jim on the phone this last night, the very famous voice actor that you would all know, told me when I first got started that you'll never make any money and never get anywhere in this business just doing impressions. And well, look where we all are now. We're all with the same agency, and 2 of us were with the same manager. So yeah, you can. I wasn't going to ask because it's not very professional, but I'm getting a lot of people in the comments are saying that don't know anything about the show would like to hear some of what you guys can do.
What?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you choose? We can have a little short conversation.
Well, I've had 2 requests for Robin Williams, which I know you do extremely well, and Piotr. I think Piotr's Jeff Goldblum is absolutely outstanding.
Ah, yes, Jeff Goldblum. Here, Robin, how you doing, buddy?
Better than you'd think. I'm doing. I'm comfortable. I'm at peace. I'm really, really at peace. It's great.
Yeah. Lots of colors behind you. I see. So many paintings. So many wonderful things. Reminds me of that movie you were in. Good God, what was it called?
Man, pull it together.
Can't. It's almost as if every word I say, I sound exasperated. Yes, repeating.
Apartments.com that you're thinking about?
Yes, apartments.com. Go now. No, not right now. They're not paying me for this.
That's true. It's just crazy.
It's sort of touchy doing Robin Williams. I mean, we're also still kind of attached to it.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because they had me to do some scratch for Robin Williams for Night Museum 3. How do you go about doing somebody because for me it feels wrong doing somebody, especially when they're recently passed, but doing actors that have passed on.
Well, I did a video actually when Robin passed that went pretty viral.
I saw that.
was trying to put that in words. It's funny. It is starting to wear off a little bit because I think the thing was that when you I mean, like with an impression, you sort of evoke something. Like Jeff Goldblum has this searching intellectual thing, and Jeff Bridges that Piotr does so well. You know, they evoke a certain character or a certain viewpoint, and they represent that. It's almost like they're a symbol of that. And Robin was a symbol to me anyway, and I think a lot of people of you know, invention and thinking outside the box and creativity and freedom, at least intellectual freedom and so forth. And when that got sort of invalidated, I think, when someone is, you know, is so depressed that they take their own life, they suddenly aren't that same symbol anymore. However, I feel like the grimness of that event and that tragedy is starting to again be replaced by what he really stood for, which I think is still this kind of fun and creativity and invention and you know, thinking outside the box and all that kind of thing and saying yes to life. And so anyway, that's how I'm sort of processing it.
Yeah, my manager told me that I should consider it as doing it in memory of him rather than, you know, the fact that I have to replace him because he's gone, which helped me to have to deal with it. But it's just one of those, when your heroes pass away, you know, it's, I don't know, it's so hard. I couldn't do Don LaFontaine's voice for almost a year after he passed away because I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
I have a kind of a funny story about a weird story, almost like a ghost story about that. So in my live show for years, I would do this thing with my wife where I would do a scene of a famous man in history, and then the audience would call out names, and so in that scene I would change from, you know, to Cary Grant to Ronald Reagan to whatever. This is going back a ways. And one of the actors' names that I always had on the list was John Gielgud. And so we're doing that for like some event, and we're doing that bit, and I never ever flubbed it. You know, it was something that was, once I got it going, I never made a mistake. It was easy. It's very easy to change characters quickly and go from John Wayne to John Cleese in the fraction of an instant. But then somebody yelled out John Gielgud, and I was blank. There was just nothing, even though I'd done it forever. And my fellow actors were like, "That was weird. What was that about?" I went, "I don't know. There was like nothing in the chamber. There was nothing." It took me quite. I don't know if I even got into it, and we went on to something else. Then later, the thing that makes it a ghost story is that later that day, they said, "Well, you know, today's the day that John Gielgud died."
Ooh.
That's weird, man. I still don't understand it, man. That's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, come on. It's nuts. So I had a question from the audience. What do you each think is your absolute best impression?
It's hard to say because it changes, it ebbs and flows because it depends on my mood. Certainly, sometimes if you do a voice over and over again, you yourself can be irritated by it, maybe because it's the hot voice or people are requesting it or that sort of thing, or it's a voice that you've done so many times you just don't want to do it. But personally, for me, it ebbs and flows. Right now, I really enjoy doing Jeff Bridges and having fun with that. But initially, in the beginning, it was Vincent Price and Christopher Lloyd.
Have a little, Piotr.
Have a little?
Have a little. Let's hear a little Jeff.
Well, I mean, you know, Jeff Bridges is sort of this kind of guy who's a little more relaxed than everybody else. And the thing about doing a Jeff Bridges is it kind of puts you, as Jim said, in that mindset, man, because you feel the dude, the power, you want to relax. And, you know, sometimes I have to stop doing the voice because I'm like, hey, man, I got to get stuff done. And right now, just, you know, in my house wearing a robe and not really, you know, doing anything and drinking a lot of White Russians.
See, I only got to get the version of Jeff Bridges that's the gruff, you know, the true grit version of Jeff Bridges, because that's the only character he hardly does anymore in every single movie.
It needs subtitles.
Exactly, that's mumble mouth Jeff Bridges.
Well, Martin Sheen went through a period of that, and a lot of older actors do. It's like they get their teeth replaced or they get caps or dentures, and it affects their speech.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff Bridges, his last at least 3 or 4 films, you can't understand what he's saying.
He's joining the club of Sylvester Stallone. Pretty much. Jim, what's yours?
For me, I don't know. I guess it's hard to measure the success. Is it like the one that people laugh the most at, or the one that I get hired the most? I did Morgan Freeman for so long, and that was a lot of fun. I'd still do that quite often for people that just require it. But I love doing George W. Bush as well. George W. Bush that always makes people chuckle. Like with Piotr, I kind of like whatever expresses what I want to express at that moment.
Let's talk a little bit about when the show is on, where they can watch it, so on and so forth. Just shameless self-promotion.
Wednesday nights. Check it out. I mean, we're about midway through our season now, and so it'd be great if people caught up, and watched on demand at that link that Piotr put up. And but Wednesday nights, 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, 10:30 also on the Pacific time too. On Pop TV, it's a new channel. It's right after Schitt's Creek, which is a very funny show. It's starting to really grow on me. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet.
For my younger audience, it's not spelled to. It's like to drink, not spelled to say.
Yeah.
Schitt's Creek.
Big difference between Schitt's Creek.
Any influences? I know Robin Williams is a big influence, but Rich Little, Jonathan Winters.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, Rich Little for sure. Rich Little is such a master, and when you see these videos of him on YouTube talking with Jimmy Stewart as Jimmy Stewart, it's so amazing. It's just an amazing illusion, and it really makes you laugh.
One of my favorites is Frank Gorshin. A lot of younger guys might not know him because he'll do impressions of people from the past, but he was one of the guys who I watched, and he was flawless. Not just his humor, but his performance, his face, his physicality with each impression, where the impressions back then were more of a vaudevillian type presentation, and he really captures it. And just an amazing performance. Frank Gorshin, he played the Riddler in the Batman TV series with Adam West.
When you're voicing a character that's peppy, energetic, in a good mood, and this has happened to me before as well. When sometimes a character is in a good mood, but you're having a bad day, how do you block out that and channel that happy emotion when you're having a horrible day?
It actually helps to do it, to do a voice like that. Like, for example, when I do Jeff Goldblum, I don't talk as fast as Jeff Goldblum, but as soon as I stop doing an impression of Jeff Goldblum, I find myself saying words really quickly and having very slight pauses in between. Like, how do I talk like that? That's not me. That's not who I am. But when you embody someone who's more positive, it does actually help. It's therapeutic, and it's I don't know. There's something to be said with stepping into someone else's shoes, and it helps with your overall perspective of the world. I don't know. Maybe people should. Jim, let's start a therapy. Start impressions for the soul.
There's an episode of Impress Me about helping people with impressions.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, it's true. I mean, if you become someone else, or you take on somebody else's viewpoint, you take on someone else's emotion, and it reminds you that, we feel certain emotions. You can pretty much be any emotion you want at any time. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a strain if you're really depressed and suddenly you're imitating someone who's euphoric. But if you just keep at it, you can actually raise your own emotional tone and feel better. And I mean, that's what acting is. And it's like when you do a drama, you don't necessarily feel like you're at your wit's end, or that you're about to commit suicide, but you've got to infer that with your performance, and so you go there emotionally. Well, you can go everywhere emotionally if you want to. You can be grief-stricken if you want. You can be in a state of hilarity if you want. And that's an interesting concept, isn't it? And we've experienced it. It just happens, because we have to eat. We have to make money. I've got to be like that guy. I've got to match that guy on the screen. And then you realize, I feel better. It's a funny thing.
Acting is just pretending to be another person.
What can we look forward to in the future of Impress Me?
It only gets bigger.
Well, hopefully, yeah, just gets bigger. Ben has told me he's got 100 episodes in his mind. So.
Oh, great.
That's good. I want to see those episodes.
Jim, thanks so much for being on here. Piotr, thank you so much. If you haven't seen it, go watch the show.
Yeah, watch the show and check out Jim's channel and mine as well. I'm sure you can hook us up, and we're definitely open to talk to everybody else. Thanks for having us, John.
Impress me.
Impress Me, Wednesday, March 18th on Pop.
You're talented. You should get a life.
If you like this video, share it and click subscribe. Click here for more VO101. And click over here for other stuff.